number 4. And this observation, again, we put these observations based on the question we ask, and I'll show you that in a moment, but metrics are just not good enough anymore. The metrics that we've inherited about the way we've done things in the past just aren't pointing our way forward. So when we delve into that and we began to ask sort of the questions of the people, what we began to see was, we asked the question, is your CX measurement system working well? And interestingly enough, nearly a quarter of those people said, yeah, absolutely, it's fantastic. Some mostly agreed, but the majority either disagreed a lot or totally disagreed that the CX measurement system was doing what it needed to do. So in each of those constituencies, we delved deeper, and even on the totally agree ones, went back to those guys and said, okay, you said your metrics are working really well. Tell us about your metrics. And I'll reflect on that a little bit later on in terms of what are the sort of next practices around metrics that are emerging. But we focused primarily on the totally disagree to actually say, okay, guys, dig deeper. Tell us why. Tell us what's not working as far as the metrics are concerned. And the first real pertinent observation was that the rearward looking. It's like driving the car by looking in the rear view mirror. That was actually a quote from one of the guys. I wanted to attribute the quote, and they said, no, I'd rather you didn't say that in case we upset any of the people who are providing metric software for us. So I said, okay, I respect that. But it's like as if we're just driving the car by looking in our rear view mirror, in our wing mirrors, and that sort of a thing. We need to be looking forward, and what these guys were particularly saying to us, we need metrics which are predictive and proactive and objective. And those phrases are in the deeper variation of this research. I brought those things out, which we're sharing with all the survey participants as well. Also, it was perceived that the metrics themselves are impractical in terms of giving us guidance on where to go. Oftentimes, the sample size may not be sufficient. And sometimes it's the same people who are answering the same surveys over and over again. And you and I might observe, well, that's down to your particular techniques and what you're using. If you're using Net Promoter Score, CSAT, Customer Effort Score, any of those sort of what are regarded as traditional CX metrics, is they've got to be representative. Some organizations are doing that. Some organizations are using NPS in a very proactive, objective way. But the vast majority would disagree in that those are CX metrics, were really helping us. One particular observation on the metrics was many organizations have tried to link an improvement in CX scores, whichever way you're gathering those CX scores, with bonus systems and rewards. The feedback we're receiving is that don't do that, because what people will begin to do is to game the system. So again, the metrics have this element of them to them, but they're not practical. They're not focused on the real results. And also from the point of view of the correlation between an improvement in customer satisfaction, however we're measuring it, and the shareholder value that hopefully we're creating. So even in government entities and utility companies, we're still creating shareholder value. So where we're creating that, what is the linkage between the two? And at best, the linkage seems tenuous. There's a lot of people have not done the necessary legwork to connect those things together, to demonstrate that an improvement of X here equals an improvement of Y there. Particularly, we talk about an improvement of Y against the Triple Crown, cost, revenue, and service. So if I improve over here in terms of what we're doing, how much better has it improved us in terms of Triple Crown, a reduction in cost, a growth in revenue, and improvement in service. So in practical metrics was one of the cries. Also, the way the measurement systems look at the world is oftentimes, and process people will get this, is we start with an input, an activity, and an output, or in the lean world, a supplier input, process output, consumer. And so many people involved in the sort of senior levels of CX were saying those metric systems are just not good enough. It's not about what we produce, it's about what we deliver. It's about the outcome that we can achieve. Right? So moving beyond outputs, what we produce, and saying what's the result of what we produce, taking us to the outcome. So with that in mind, we're not a factory. We should be focusing on outcomes, right? Outcomes, and I would say outcomes for that, you could say results. But I don't want to drop into a discussion. Some people brought up this whole idea of objectives and key results and things like that. And there's lots of different measurement systems out there. But what I was hearing was, we want a measurement system that directly tells us that if we are improving this, we get that. That's the outcome of doing this. That makes sense. And lastly, this one came across. So there was one particular organization that springs to mind that we're going to write about in a few months' time. But they were saying a lot of the metrics are very subjective and emotional. And as a, for instance, one guy said, look, if you ask me a question on Monday, I'm going to give you a different answer on Friday, just because I feel differently. So are we going to bet the farm on oftentimes overly emotional, subjective measures? Can we not have more objective measures? And we'll see that coming through in terms of what people were saying they were doing for next practice. One comment that we captured, they have a different opinion, of the customers that is, have a different opinion on every day of the week. Two of the organizations were in the middle of doing a huge employee survey. And what they've done is they've done a sample size of different people on different days of the week and things like that. And what they were doing was establishing a pattern that, you know, identified when is the best time to ask the questions to get the best results. You know, that's not about improving, you know, employee experience or customer experience. That's about us making feel good about the targets that we've set ourselves, perhaps. I'm just saying. So that was number 4.